In this lesson, we're going to be learning how to set up cross-platform audio using the open source library Howler.js. This will allow us to get audio working on mobile just as well as on desktop. Now, this is actually a library that I wrote about a year and a half ago, and it's received widespread use in the industry and has really great support from contributors from the community. As you can see here on GitHub, we'll be using the 2.0 branch. As of the recording of this video, 2.0 is still in development. However, it is quite stable and will be merged into master quite soon. So, as you can see, I've already loaded in Howler core into our index.html. We won't be using the effects module in this game, but that does provide more advanced functionality. So before we can dive into the code, we need to go ahead and set up our audio file. And in order to do that, we'll be using my favorite open source audio software, Audacity. This is available for Mac, Windows, and Linux. Now, I've already loaded in two sounds that I found from freesound.org. It's a really great site that has a lot of, as you would guess from the name, free audio files available under varying but open licenses. So I found a stone sound and a bomb explosion sound that we will create our basic audio sprite from. And audio sprites are a unique feature of Howler.js that really lends itself to improved performance on mobile. So what we want to do here is, with our selection tool, go ahead and double click on our second sound and then select our move tool, which will allow us to drag this sound around. Now, it's important for us to leave at least a full second of silence between each sound to prevent any overlap issues, especially on mobile devices. So let's go ahead and move it up to 2 seconds here, just to make things easier to work with by using a integer. Now, let's go ahead and zoom in, make sure we get this lined up perfectly. Okay. That looks good right there. Go ahead and zoom back out and go back to the selection tool. Now, all we need to do is go ahead and export, file, export, and then let's go ahead and save it as sounds and select WAV as our output. That's the lossless output. Go ahead and hit save, and then just go ahead and go through the prompts there. So we could use the WAV format in the browser, but as it is lossless, it's got a very high file size. It's not the most performant. So my recommendation is to use a default of OGG, which has a good combination of compression and quality, and then fall back to MP3 to add Internet Explorer support. So we could export that from here within Audacity, but I've found that using the open source FFmpeg leads to better results. So let's go ahead and open up our terminal window here and simply type FFmpeg, give it an input of sounds.wav, and then we want to give it a quality that's fairly low if we want to support mobile devices, especially low-end mobile devices that could run into issues trying to play back extremely high quality audio. So a number we've used with Casino RPG with success is 48K. It sounds quite low, but the quality, at least for these types of sounds, isn't all that bad and gives a very nice high rate of compression. Okay, and then we'll just give it the output sounds.ogg. And it looks like make sure you spell FFmpeg correctly. Okay, so we've created our OGG. Now let's do the same thing for MP3. All right, so we've got our two audio files set up. Now we can go ahead and dive into the sound. Let's go ahead and jump down to our setup method here and set up audio sprite. Okay, so this is where we use Howler's API. This .sound equals new howl, and each new Howler instance is called a howl. Howler would be the global scope and controlling things like global volume, muting, playback, things like that. So we just simply pass in an object with our properties, our settings. We'll pass in the source, which again we're defaulting to OGG, so we start with that, and then our fallback would be the second element in the array, and we make that sounds.mp3. Okay, now we want to set up our sprite definition, which is another object with the names of our sounds. So we've got stone and bomb. Now what these are is the definition of the first element of the array is the starting position of the playback and then the length, both in milliseconds. So let's go ahead and jump back into Audacity. Again, with our selection tool, we can go ahead and double click here. We already know that this sound starts at 0, but then with end selected here at the bottom, we can see that it ends at 0.48 seconds, which would be 480 milliseconds. So we can define this sprite for the stone sound as 0, 480. And then for our explosion sound, it starts at 2 seconds. Oops. And it ends at 3.612, which would be 1612 milliseconds. So we can go ahead and define that one as well. Okay, and so now we have our sounds defined. Now we need to actually play them back. So let's, again, Command R, lets us jump down to the definition of whatever method we type in. So let's go ahead and this.sound.play stone. And then let's take a look again in our other tab here. Inside of our handle shake, this is when our bomb blows up in a good way. And we'll go ahead and play this.sound.play bomb. Okay, so we now have our sounds set up and playing. We can go ahead and test this in the browser. Again, the one drawback is that we aren't able to test the bombs in the browser because we don't have that accelerometer data, but we can still test to make sure that our stones are playing back correctly. So we'll just click on a few here, and as you can see, the sound plays as would be expected. If we were actually playing this on a mobile device, we could shake it and get the sound playback just in the same way from those bombs as well. So we've now learned how to set up cross-platform and cross-device audio using Howler.js with a special focus on mobile devices. In upcoming lessons, we will be looking at how to work even further towards a more native experience on mobile devices.